Hello. For my paper, I talked about the humanistic approach in therapy as my theory. What the humanistic approach basically is a more positive approach to what a lot of people know as psychotherapy. Rather than pointing out the differences, they point out the positives in the person and the good characteristics. Instead of using more group examples, they focus on the individual. What the humanistic approach purposes is to bring the good out of people, to realize that to give them better self-esteem, and help them come to good terms with themselves, because a lot of times when the humanistic approach is used, it's on people who are down on themselves, have low self-esteem, or just overall are depressed, have anxiety, anything like that. In my paper, I talked about how I plan on being a future guidance counselor in the school system. So I believe this humanistic approach would be great for young adults. I go into depth talking about how somebody with poverty and has to work jobs because their family can't support the bills that they have, may lack on other things that their peers do, which causes them to have depression, or it could cause them to have anxiety, stress, because maybe they're not doing good in school because of all the stress that's going on them. So I feel like the humanistic approach would be a good theory to try out on them, just because you are boosting the positives in their life, and not dwelling on past events that have happened. And that's one thing about the humanistic approach, is that they don't dwell in the past, is they just focus on the future and focus on what's happening now. So they try to bring out, so I spoke on how I would try to bring out the good in them, showing them how they would how they have good characteristics. I also used an example of something totally opposite. Let's say that there's a upper class citizen in the school, and that their parents are putting a lot of pressure on them on grades, and maybe they got in trouble because they had a B or something, and now they're super depressed because of it. Well, you would counsel them in this humanistic approach, like reassuring them that that's okay, that happens. Don't stress on it. You're doing great. You would maybe have a little assignment for him, saying, "Hey, let's write down a couple things that you thought that you did good today in school," and that would be good for them, and it would show them that they should have confidence in themselves and not worry about what's happened. I also talked about in my paper a few disorders that I thought that would be good to use this approach on. Like I said before, depression would be a huge one. The humanistic approach is a very positive attitude, and getting them in a more joyful state, I feel like, would be good for them. And anxiety is the same thing. We want them to look for the good and not stress on the bad. I did talk about one that I thought that would not be good. I didn't think that PTSD would be a good thing to try the humanistic therapy on, because a lot of PTSD is they want to talk about their past, and in a humanistic approach, we don't want to talk about the past. We kind of want to talk about what's going on now. And I feel like if we kept talking about on now, we wouldn't really conquer what has happened in the past to make them like fight through it and really see what's going on. So I really don't think that PTSD would be a good one to use. I went on to talk about how I would use this on a subject. I said, let's say that there's a person who comes in that is depressed, and doesn't feel good about themselves. And I said the humanistic approach would be good, because you would let's write down some good characteristics about them. Let's bring out those characteristics. I said in my paper, let's maybe have an assignment where we write down 5 things that you or feel good about right now. But I also said if they can't do that, let's drop down the number. I feel like that would be very good for them, very beneficial. We might be able to find what they think is good and maybe like heighten it, or try to heighten it in their thing. Like maybe you get them an assignment, say, let's do a couple of this if you think that's good. I went on to talk about how we just as counselors want them to feel better about themselves and overcome this depression or anything that they're going through. And I feel like the humanistic approach does a really good job with treatment, and would possibly even get them out of treatment if they did good enough in that program.